Okay, now we're going to move on to our first keynote speaker. Now, this keynote is entitled Supporting the Empowerment of Women and the Youth Through Education and Networking. So we're going to welcome up onto the stage our speaker for this next session, and her name is Yuri Hirayama. She's the School Director, Educator, and Chief Sustainability Officer at Yuri Education Center. Let's put our hands together for Yuri.
Thank you so much for gathering. My name is Yuri. I'm from Japan. I live in Mexico, but I am from Tokyo. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, so today I'd like to introduce my new organization. It's called Yuri Education Center. Well, my name is Yuri. And then I took this photo with my Indonesian students, and well, actually they gathered for me, so I was giving a lecture for them. And then my school's motto is, we discuss, lead, and act. And then I am a school director. I have been teaching for 20 years, but last year in October, I set up a new organization, especially focusing on sustainability. In Japan, actually, sustainability education was a little behind, because one of the reasons was that they were not really aware of the importance of learning about sustainability. So actually, they were very good at science, mathematics, and social studies. And then they were not realizing that sustainability covers a lot of subjects such as science and social studies. And then Yuri Education Center is consisted of 3 organizations. The first one, Yuri's Happy English. I am the main principal educator. And then what I do in the first organization is that I gather mothers and babies, including 0, 1, and 2-year-old babies. The reason why I gathered those mothers and babies is that in Japan, a lot of mothers are feeling lonely while raising their babies. And mainly fathers are working either outside or at home. But even though the fathers are staying at home, working at home, but they don't have time to raise their babies. So mothers are feeling lonely. And then I have 2 children also. And then I started this Yuri's Happy English activity about 12 years ago. At that time, my first baby was 0-year-old. And then I gathered mothers and babies in the community center in Tokyo. And I started to teach music and English. Most of the mothers in Japan are not really good at speaking English. And then if they sing in English, they can become happy. So I have been teaching music and English. And then also, the second one, Academy Liberal Arts and Science, I gather students, especially elementary school students. And then actually, this school is after-school school. So I teach from 4 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. And then what I teach is especially sustainability. And the school doesn't teach sustainability so much. So after school, I gather students in order to teach sustainability, including science, math, and English. So the ages are including kindergarten kids, so from 4-year-old up to 18. And then the third one I actually started last year is Zoom SDGs You Lead classes. What I do is I include students from all over the world, and then while conducting Zoom sessions, I can include so many students from all over the world, including Asia, Africa, and Europe. And then they can exchange their opinions and discuss the common issues on the same earth. So, especially SDGs, sustainability. And then what I mean by SDGs, it stands for Sustainable Development Goals set by UN, United Nations. And then this is the, they actually were not really aware of like 17 goals, but this is really helpful in order to, well, set up the curriculum. So I am actually utilizing this SDGs format. Okay. And then these are the pictures. I gather mothers and babies in the community center. And then in Japan, community centers, there are so many spaces and then the rooms are not used. So a lot of rooms were vacant. So I talked to the community center and what I can do. What can I do for mothers who are feeling lonely at home? So we negotiated and then I decided to use the rooms in the community center so that the rooms are really became enjoyable places for mothers and babies. And of course, sometimes I encourage fathers, yes, to join them. So not only on weekdays, but sometimes I hold these classes on Saturdays so that fathers also can join. And then, as I told you, I am holding some after-school classes while focusing on sustainability. And then not only the desk work, I would like them to work on like some field work, workshop as well. So I fixed a class, Waste to Wow, that is based on SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. And then what I do is I encourage each student to set up their own objective and set up their own project related to SDG 12. And then they are in charge of solving and doing some research related to SDG 12. So actually, the elementary school kids, about 7-year-old kids, including junior high and high school and university students have been doing this. And then probably like 2 or 3 months, it takes time to be able to present their ideas. And then the presentation time is about like 4-minute speech, like including Q&A, 5 minutes, but Japanese students are usually shy. They are not used to speaking in front of public, but through this practice, now they are not shy. They are used to speaking in front of public, so that's really the progress. And then what I do myself related to SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, is I make sandals like this out of motorcycle tires. In Japan, there are many motorcycles which are still new, but once they realize that the tires are old, then they keep changing, especially motorcycle riders keep changing tires so many times. So the tires are piled up like this. And then one day I talked to the shop owner of the motorcycle. And then they decided to give away those tires so that I can utilize those tires. I can change those tires into these kind of sandals. I realized that as a teacher, teachers need to be involved, be engaged in some kind of SDG 12 related activity. So I selected this. And then maybe you have seen these kind of sandals. For Japanese people, wearing sandals, well, they are not allergic to, right, wear sandals. So they get used to wearing sandals like this. So not only during the summertime, but all year round, they can wear this. So not only male, but also females, they wear like this. So I could even sell some sandals made out of tires. And then I'm from Japan, but I recently moved to Mexico because I am a PhD candidate, but I was taking MBA online class, and then Mexican graduate school, it's called EGADE Business School. I got the idea of this repurposing idea from indigenous people living in Tarahumara, Chihuahua state. So they were doing the same thing. They were making sandals out of tires. So now I am in Mexico, so I hope to keep discussing and then exchange some ideas with indigenous people living in Chihuahua state. That's my another objective. And how do I make sandals using tires? Well, actually, I can carry these tires, not very heavy, and then it was very surprising. I could use manual cutters, maybe like $3 cutter, and then to cut the tires. I was trying electric one, but electric one causes some smell, so I preferred using manual cutter, very cheap one, in order to cut into those like this, okay? And then as a strap, I have been using climbing ropes. Climbing ropes, there are many climbing ropes which were thrown away without being repurposed. So I gathered those. And then it took me maybe 4 hours to make one pair. And then that was really enjoyable for me. So some of my students started to make this too. Yes, and then I use Zoom because students in developing countries, if they have one smartphone in the family, of course, they can connect to Zoom, right? It's very easy for them. If I use Teams or other very complicated tool, then not so many students can join. But especially the ones in Africa or in Asia, they know how to use Zoom. So basically, it's easy for them to join Zoom sessions. So I have been using Zoom. And then another surprising thing is that, as you can see, they are sustainability practitioners. And then I have been informing these activities on LinkedIn, and then a lot of people started to collaborate with me. And then without charging any, even like they would like to help us out, and then they would like to share their knowledge. So I am very happy to welcome these sustainability experts from all over the world. And then Africa, Asia, and Europe, somehow we can, hold that session without any time conflict. For example, I keep holding these sessions at 5:30 p.m. in Japan time, which is like 11:30 in DR Congo, Africa, and in Europe, about 10:30 or 11:30 a.m. And in Asian countries, in Pakistan, there are only 4-hour difference, and in India, 3.5 hours. So a lot of people can join the sessions. And then I am now trying to include Mexican students, Latin American students as well. And then the purpose is we bridge the gap in sustainability education by encouraging students to identify the issues and then set goals, their own goals, and solve issues collectively. Okay. And then as I introduced before, repurposing activities have been very common in Tokyo. And I keep holding this workshop, Waste to Wow. So yes, many Japanese students, started to share their ideas in order to present. Okay. And then another thing which is very unique in Japan is that we tend to follow suit. So we are lacking some creativity. And then that's the picture. When I was in high school, we were told not to express our opinion so much. If we are standing out, if we are showing of something, there is a saying, the nail that sticks out would be hammered down. So we are not encouraged to show our identity, show our creativity, original character. I would like to change. Very conservative atmosphere exists inside the school. So, of course, changing the hair color is really out of question. Even some Western students whose hair is blonde sometimes they change from blonde hair to black. That's so strange. So that is why they are not very good at expressing their ideas in front of the public, for example. But I would like to encourage other foreign students to influence, to give positive influence on Japanese students so that we can get used to that kind of, we would like to become less conservative in that sense. Yeah. So my purpose is to reduce conservatism and then promote expressiveness too. Yeah. So this is a slide. Some students, they, this is actually she proposed the idea. She actually received so many cosmetics from students or from the friends, but her school doesn't allow her to use cosmetics. So there are so many cosmetics which are not used. So she gathered people from all over the world to exchange those unused cosmetics. And then she included female participants and male participants too. So, I mean, genderless really. In Japan and in Korea, male students also make up using cosmetics. So the event was really genderless, and then they were very happy to exchange unused cosmetics. So yeah, and she was of course happy too. And also at school, those land cells, actually we call it land cells, are required. The red one for girls, and then the black one for boys. And then after using those bags for 6 years, even though they are still new, many people just throw them away. And a kimono also, we just have those kimonos at home without being, worn and then without being repurposed. So one girl suggested that, okay, she can probably change this kimono into something modern. So kimono material is usually very expensive, but usually maybe once or twice a year Japanese people wear, but not so many times. So one student suggested, repurposing and then changing from kimono to Western clothes, for example. And then from these cells also, she was suggesting, right, changing from cell to other material. So the repurposing was really successful. And then another concern is that Japanese people are trying to help the people in need in developing countries. But sometimes we just collect the clothes and send them, right, directly. But a lot of them think that, okay, giving all the items to the people in need is not very polite. So by repurposing items, they can create something new. So we try our best to make something new by using the material that exists. Yeah. And then another example, one girl is actually very good at painting. But one day she realized that the paper material, the quality is changing, right? The color is changing. Even though she was drawing very well, the color has been changing. It's very unfortunate. So she started to use her iPad without using paper. And then, as she suggested, as she mentioned, yes, if she has to use paper, it, costs a lot. And also it occupies space in her room. And then paper takes up a lot of space, and the paper is easy to tear, and it's fragile too. So very many unfortunate things may happen. So after using her iPad, the quality, according to her, is getting really better. And then she'll be able to see the same pictures even in 10 years too. So yes, she's very happy to use Of course, drawing using the paper, that activity itself is important. But yes, students in Japan tend to use iPad or tablets to draw pictures nowadays. And then myself also, in order to save the paper, I use exchange my business card. I encourage my friends and to read my QR code in order to save the paper. This is my business card, but it's made of plastic. And then as long as they have a smartphone, they can read my QR code. So I can save the paper too. Yes, and then another example, a lot of Japanese girls and boys are good at cooking, but at the same time, in Japan, people are very busy, so they throw a lot of food, really. And they don't have time to check the expiration dates. So really, the food waste is a serious issue. I've seen people going to buffet restaurant and then they just leave the food without eating up everything. So it's a bad tendency, but we need to solve somehow. So she suggested one refrigerator, and then it's just simple, but she categorized by the expiration date. Okay, the left side within 1 week, and the middle within 2 weeks, and then other. Then after she redesigned the refrigerator, her mom and dad were very happy. Yeah, because food waste is minimized. Yeah. And then composting is getting common among students and among family members too. And also Japan, many earthquakes occur. So getting along well with the neighbors, it's very important. So when they cook too much, they tend to share with neighbors so that they can enhance their relationship with the neighbors. I think it's very important. Yep. And then one more example. One girl, maybe 13 or 14-year-old girl, created one desk. And she realized that Japanese students use erasers so many times, but those eraser dusts can be collected into her miracle box in order to make a new eraser. Actually, she made the new erasers, and then she has been using the new erasers. That's so simple, but the desk was innovative, really. The bump, makes her, allows her to collect dust. So among students, they have enough time to think about, but when they become adults, they don't have enough time. So engaging in this kind of activity is really necessary for young people. So I keep encouraging them to work on this. And then when I talk about the students in other Asian countries or in African countries, their perspectives are sometimes different and very unique. So that kind of influence is really positive for Japanese students. So yeah, especially the ones from Pakistan, the ones from India, they are not shy at all. Even though those countries are located in the same Asia, they are proactive and they are creative too. So I don't know whether you can distinguish the people, but the ones from Singapore, the ones from Pakistan are really influencing Japanese students in a positive way. Yeah, and then the picture on the right-hand side, sometimes one classroom only has one computer. So people from Tanzania, for example, or Nigeria or Uganda, they are attending, the whole class is attending the class, our Zoom session. Yeah. But really, all of them are really active. They are raising their hands, right? So maybe at the maximum, I limit number of students up to 50, but sometimes 60 or 70 students are attending at the same time. Yep. And then I assign the homework too. Yeah. Before joining the session, let's say that I set up like SDG 11. We are going to talk about sustainable cities and communities. So, yeah, before joining, I like them to work on and then be able to answer those questions. For example, if you are the leader of a city, how would you create and provide safe and environmentally friendly public spaces for all communities to enjoy? Or some of them live in cities, some of them live in the rural area, and I encourage them to explain the advantages and disadvantages. And when I was a university student, I realized that it is important to consider why in addition to what, in order to make our discussions more interesting and to better understand people on the same earth. This awareness, this sense is really lacking in Japan. You would imagine that a lot of products were produced in Japan, but they are not very innovative. They are very good at imitating or developing products, but originating or coming up with ideas, I don't think they are good at yet. So I encourage them to be more creative. Another focus is SDG 4, quality education. As you can imagine, a lot of Japanese people are very rich and they were born to be rich. I mean, almost everyone could go to school. And then even many of them, it's very easy for them to graduate from universities, yes. But volunteering activities, not so many people are concerned about. Yes, not so many people are interested in helping the people in need. But I'd like them to become supportive, and then I'd like them to help the people in need. So I introduced this SDG 4, quality education. Yeah. But I'm not only introducing, I encourage the students from Pakistan to join the session. I don't know whether you know about Pakistan or not, but the situation is that there is so much difference between cities and the countryside. And then some of them used to live in countryside, but they really couldn't get good education in rural areas. So with a family, with the whole family, some of them moved out from countryside to cities. So they know much more about what quality education is, for example. And they are more concerned about responsible consumption and production too. So all of them are from Pakistan. And then I realized that they are trying to contribute themselves, right, to the society. So no matter how, where they are from cities, they are from countryside, they are thinking about how to contribute themselves for the nation. So I really encourage them to join the session with Japanese students. Yeah, and some of them, even though they are 12 or 13 years old, they are company owners already. Yeah. So yeah, the students are from Pakistan, and I include Oxford alumni members and also the alumni members from University of Singapore, so that we can collectively discuss. So this is very frequent. I live in Mexico, but we can connect easily on Zoom. And then she's Isel, 12-year-old girl. She's a company owner, of course, with the help of parents. And then what she suggested is that she realized that there are tons of ghost nets in the ocean. And of course, that's affecting the marine environment. So what she has been doing in Pakistan, for example, is to gather those ghost nets. Probably fishermen are, by mistake or intentionally, I don't know. Those are abundant inside the ocean. And then she asked people to gather, of course. But the quality of nets are not really bad, so she thought she could repurpose the nets from ghost nets to the sucker, right? Where the keepers are sucker gold nets. And then, well, coincidentally, she's a big fan of soccer, so she really wanted to encourage people in Pakistan to play soccer. Not only male members, but also female. So that was her original idea. And a lot of supporters actually exist in helping her activity. And of course, this is a repurposing activity, and many Japanese students, I mean, even older than she is 12, right? But 14, 15, 6-year-old kids were impressed, got influenced by these activities. Not only quality education, not only the environmental, like a positive effect, but also empowering women, giving them new job to the women in Pakistan. That's something miracle. So her activity is ongoing, and my students have been joining this activity. Yeah, in order to make soccer more popular and also in order to empower women in Pakistan to create more jobs for them. So as an educator, I will continue to support the empowerment of young people so that they can raise their voice. And then while engaging in collective thinking and discussion, as I told, not only Japanese people, but people from Africa, people from Pakistan, people from Europe, people from Latin America, people from Middle East. Not only girls, but boys have been raising their voice. One boy, for example, he has been actually suggesting, okay, not only trying to change the current situation, okay, we have to, the people in Vietnam need to be really conservative sometimes. For example, while Asia, like Vietnam, has made progress in gender equality, still there are so many remaining issues such as domestic violence and restrictions on girls' freedom. And sometimes Western culture affects, right? Western influences, like it's considered to be modern, but it may have worsened gender conflicts in Vietnam. And then, as I said, a universal Western approach is likely effective as a whole, but sometimes it can be ineffective in Vietnam. So that kind of new idea was influencing the class sometimes. So I encourage boys, of course, to raise their voice too. And then in Japan, we don't actually follow specific religion. So if she is wearing that kind of costume, then the Japanese students are wondering, oh, what kind of religion, right, she has. And then she didn't actually mention about her religion, but Ramadan season, she has to limit the food or drink, for example. And then not only that, she explained the situation, how the situation is in countryside and in cities too. So really, she went to the countryside, even though she's a teenager, and then she tried to solve the situation. She lives in city, but she is wondering how she can contribute herself in order to improve the situation in rural area. So that's an ongoing activity. And then I myself try my best to represent young people in the media, for example, because teenagers do not have so much opportunity to raise their voice in media. So on behalf of them, I try my best to represent on media. And then not only 17 SDGs, but I encourage my students to think about one more SDG. It can be their original SDG. You know, there's 17 goals, but it can be one more, right? So I really encourage the students to think about their own goal. Yep. And then, sorry, the change slides, but I realized that a lot of people become leaders. And of course, mothers sometimes have to be leaders, but leaders are being lonely sometimes. And then especially for the teenagers in Pakistan, they are feeling lonely. But we discussed about this. Being lonely is a negative thing or positive thing? Maybe neither. But I'm sure that being lonely should give opportunity for each individual to think about what they can do newly, originally, based on their unique ideas. So I even encourage them to be lonely sometimes. Okay, so loneliness for us is not a negative thing. They can even become confident by having some time to think about by themselves. And then they come up with their own ideas, right? By being lonely. And then also, I would like them to look at the sky sometimes, or look at the butterflies, or look at the flowers. Then, even though they're feeling lonely, you know, the clouds are moving and the butterflies are really flying, then they would realize that their brains should not stop, right? They have to keep thinking about being lonely, feeling loneliness. It's just a natural thing, but they should not stop their activities. And then one more important thing is that my school philosophy is that if they feel lonely, like lonely people, if they come to one place to get together, those kind of lonely leaders will create one special community, I thought. So I am sure that a lot of leaders are feeling lonely, but I even encourage them to keep feeling lonely. And then, yeah, share your own ideas in order to create a special community. Then that is the origin of this Yuri Education Center. And then it's still new, like 1 year and some months. So I think it's still developing, but thank you very much for your attention. Our school motto is we courageously discuss and actively lead and collectively act. Thank you so much.